call the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for joining, and look forward to a productive meeting. Obviously unprecedented times, a lot to talk about. This is something we've never experienced and hopefully we'll never experience again in the future. As I said, hope everybody's safe and healthy and getting through these crazy times. When Jen comes on, it'd be great. But in terms of the agenda, we got the board meetings from the last meeting, February, which seems like years ago, to approve, review and approve, and we'll get into the full agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review? I noticed Paul Baum is not included in there. He was present.
Yeah, I was present. Yeah. Didn't see the minutes though.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen the minutes?
No.
Yeah. They were. Oh, did you distribute to Paul, Anna?
Let me look and see. I sent it to the list that Ryan gave me. So, yes, Paul. It was pboehm@exponent.com.
Really? Okay.
On Saturday.
Okay. I'll check it out while you're talking.
Can you try to resend, Anna?
Yep, I'll forward again right now.
Great. Yeah, we wanted everybody to take a look at those and let's try to approve them before we go to the next public input. So everybody else review them. Like I said, Paul Bowen was not included, needs to be included. His name as president, as well as his term in the appointments list.
Paul, for clarification, your term is actually the finishing of Jack Carlton's term. So it actually expires in May. And then so you'll have to go up again when we get back to town meeting, and that will be your first term officially. So you were kind of filling the empty void left by somebody.
Yeah. So everybody knows the all appointments, including my term, won't expire until they have the next town meeting. So everybody's term is extended beyond until the next town meeting, which I'm not sure when is it. They're trying to schedule a September timeframe.
Well, it's been extended. It will be, as of today or tomorrow, it will be extended through the end of, I believe it's July, but that is yet to be determined. It may get extended again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just for everybody's edification, I think everybody's terms will be accordingly extended until after that meeting, the town meeting. If you get that, Paul, you're looking at it. Paul Grasso, have you taken a look at it?
I haven't gotten it. I'll have to check my spam, although your stuff hasn't been going to spam. Oh, here it is. Just came.
Got it? Great.
Must have gone by the West Coast.
I've got it.
Got it. Yep.
So the way we're going to do votes is that we're going to have to get everybody individually to say aye or nay. So we kind of do a roll call vote so we know, and Anna can record it. So tell us when you're ready, Paul.
There's some speed reading here in the void that I'm in.
You have to test your memory for the last 3 months.
It is a bit of a blur.
Given what's happened, I can't believe you even remember anything.
It looks great. I'm fine.
Okay. So
I have no comments. This is the other Paul.
Okay. Casey, no comments?
No comments.
Casey? Okay, great. I'd like to make a motion to approve the board minutes of February 25th, 2020. We have a motion to approve.
Peter, make sure you include the
Second.
addition of Paul's name.
Yeah, as amended, as discussed, as amended, Paul's addition, yes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? No, okay, let's take a roll call to yays, Paul Boehm,
Yay?
yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Casey?
Yay.
Paul Grasso?
Yay.
I'm a yay. So, and Jen's not on the line still, correct?
Correct.
All right, so motion is approved. Let's go on to public input. As Ryan mentioned, I guess there's a little thing on the Zoom call where you could raise your hand. We have public input.
Anna, you would just have to unmute them. And then anybody and just tell them that they'd be coming on, then anybody would have to introduce their name and their address.
I
Right.
just don't see any hands raised by an icon. I don't know where I'd be looking for them, I guess.
And if anybody wants it,
You wanna
can do it
raise
the
their hand
old-fashioned
like
way if they're invisible. But, yeah. Okay.
No, okay. All right, let's continue on the
Hey, Peter, just
Department
a comment, just a little protocol. When you address a Paul, can it be Paul B or Paul G? Because
Sure, sorry.
confuse the heck out of
Paul
each other.
B, Paul
It's
G.
okay.
Yes, got it. Good protocol. All right. So getting into the department update, Ryan will give us an update, and obviously there's a lot to talk about here. And I guess you're going to share the screen.
Yeah, I'm going to start off
with the
first though with
presentation, Ryan.
some good news. We have a guest with us here today, Miles Inman, and we want to talk about some of the good positive things of recreation and all this crazy time. So I'm going to hand it over to Anna to talk about presenting Miles with an award.
Great. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. And thanks, Miles, for jumping on. We wanted to make sure to let everybody know that Miles Inman is this year's Maureen Taggart Award recipient. Miles has worked for the rec department for a number of years, and I'm going to read a little bit about what the award is and how decisions are made as to who gets it and why Miles was chosen this year. So when I look away, it's because I have two computers going here. Since 1985, the Maureen Taggart Community Service Award has been presented annually to a high school student, public or private, who is a resident of Concord or Carlisle, who has demonstrated a loving and giving spirit through voluntary service in the community. Maureen Taggart was a dedicated Concord Recreation Department employee for many years. She was passionate about giving back to the local community, and she volunteered frequently. The 2020 Maureen Taggart Community Service Award is presented to Miles Inman. Miles has completed many hours of service for our community, including organizations like the Eagle Scouts, building projects that took over 75 hours to complete. One of the projects specifically was a raised garden bed that he built to benefit our Carousel Preschool and the town's Council on Aging. Miles has shown through his time and effort that his community, the Concord community, is an important part of his life, and he is willing to give back to support it. A main feature of this award is that the recipient has the privilege of designating a deserving organization to receive a small financial gain in Maureen's name. Miles has chosen the Child Fund International organization, an organization that provides assistance to deprived, excluded, and vulnerable children in over 30 countries, including the United States. It's clear that this organization and the work that it does represents who Miles is as a member of our community, and we're very proud to award Miles with this award this year. So congratulations, Miles. You are a shining star in our organization and for the town of Concord, and we're very proud of you, and you're very deserving of this.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Miles.
Congratulations.
Thanks so much, Miles.
Great job. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Linda.
Linda?
Hi, Miles, have you had a chance to see your efforts in operation, or has the pandemic interfered with that?
No, I've seen them in operation. The garden bins were completed 2 years ago, so I got to see them last year. They started planting, and it was a really wonderful thing to see how my community service helped provide another project to give back to the community, and that was really something to see.
Terrific.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
I just want to say Miles is great. He's kind of an all hands on for us. Like if we need help, we can call Miles. And my first experience with Miles was the first year of the Jazz Fest. And we had to move the stage out of the rain in the middle of the rain coming down to cancel the Jazz Fest. And Miles lasted through that night. So credit to you because that was a lot of hard work and effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Great team member.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank
Miles,
you,
you're
Miles.
welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like, but it's also okay if you'd like to bow out.
We will not be offended if you go off. And
All right, yeah. I do have to head out, but thank you so much for all those very kind words, and thank you very much for the award. It was an honor to receive it.
Excellent.
Thank you, Miles.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Miles.
it.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you for your service.
Keep up the great work. Awesome.
Okay, we're able to see my screen now.
So before Ryan gets started, I mean, he's got a lot to cover. Yeah, we see the screen. You know, got a lot to cover. I want to point out that, you know, we have to kind of remind, you know, sometimes us, but in particular the rest of the town, about the fact that the recreation department is more or less self-funded. You know, they get very little money from town taxes, unlike any other group other than the water and sewer and the power plant, which, by the way, get, you know, more or less mandatory fees. So they are, so long as their customers pay them, which they're legally obligated to do, they don't get materially impacted financially like the recreation department, where their fees and services are discretionary, and if something like a pandemic comes, like it has, they get significantly financially burdened with little to no help from the taxpayers. And that's, you know, so, you know, we'll put all of this in context, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, for good or for bad, we're on our own. And we'll talk a little bit about, you know, that and what we've done and the all the steps that Ryan and Andy have made, and you know, we'll go from there. So Ryan, take it ahead.
Great, thank you, Peter. I was thrilled that the team brought up that having Miles come on board, because I just feel like to hear some of those good stories about recreation every once in a while now that we're struggling and talking numbers and you know, furloughs and stuff that isn't very recreation to normal business for us. So just want to start off with our mission statement, because I just think it's important to go back to what our value is and who we are in supporting and promoting community wellness and play. We're dedicated, innovative, inclusive, and fun. We believe we're an important asset to this community, and we do everything we can to be there and make this a great place for people to live and improve that quality of life across all different generations. So I'm going to now kind of really focus on what has happened in the department since the impact that's impacted all of us in society, but just going to talk very specific to this department. Our initial approach right out of the gates was that participants weren't going to bear the financial expense of the facility closures and program cancellations. And you probably don't remember back in the news now because it seems so far back, but there were gyms that were still going to charge their members the monthly fees. There were daycare centers that were still going to charge their participants the monthly fees. And we chose right away that if you're not getting the service that you paid for, then we're not going to charge you for it. So we went through a large amount of a refund process for people. The team, when we came together and we talked about that, not only was it right and the right thing to do, but two, we really believed it put us in a better standing to get the BD members back. No point making them angry at this point in time when everybody's going through a challenge. And then same thing with the daycare providers, you know, and right now in the before and after school for the fall registration, we're almost sold out for the fall. Now that will change because things are changing by the hour, but those people are still anticipating if school goes back to normal that they would be coming back through us. We've been offering virtual exercise classes through BD during this time, and we've been assisting along with local businesses wherever we can as possible. A good example of that is that some of the rec team staff members dressed up as Anna and whatever her boyfriend's name is, I forget, Christoph, and did a Frozen trivia night for Trails End. And it was the recreation department team doing that and trying to help out Trails End. They asked for a little assistance with it. We did so there. Beth Williams, the Visitor Center and Tourism Manager, been assisting small businesses connect with our finance department to help them apply for funding from the state and from the federal government. So we've been trying to do what we can do wherever the rec department can lend a hand. Additionally, the administrative team has been working really hard on following what's happening local and national. Been following, American Camp Association, the Mass Park and Rec Association, National Park and Rec Association, USA Swimming, fitness club and pool industry leaders, getting a lot of good information from what's happening out of state as the southern states start to reopen, seeing what they were putting out for plans. And we're just trying to develop concepts for reopening in a safe and effective manner. And the last point is that we submitted a COVID-19 impact study to the town manager's office and finance director. It includes the financial impact and recommendations for cost savings for both current status and future forecast. I'm going to go over some of those financial standings right now just to kind of play out the impact that it's had for us. Good news is we have two budgets. We have a recreation revolving account. That is your traditional rec program, summer camp, the carousel preschool, our basketball program, et cetera, ski programs. That had a fund balance at the end of last fiscal year, a healthy fund balance of $1,098,000. So much so that the auditors were actually asking us to spend it down, which now today looks foolish in retrospect. But that's to the point where that fund balance was. And that's a good, healthy amount compared to our neighbors and hearing what our neighbors have for parks and recreation departments, et cetera. Here's a little bit of a cash flow analysis of what's happening to date. And most of this is really driven from the impact of the refunding the programs, not running school year programs, seeing major reductions in summer programming, et cetera. But like we said, we started with that starting point on June 30th. Our current standing right now from the financials pulled up this morning is we are $179,000 in the hole for this fiscal year. We still have $23,000 of refunds that we need to be submitting that haven't gone through and been processed yet. We have a fixed operation cost with our full-time staff of just over $9,000 per week, and we have about 6 weeks of payroll left for an additional $56,000. Variable costs are limited status payroll. Most of that would be White Pond Beach operation and summer camp operation. As we start to bring part-timers back in to start operating the programs as we get hopefully moving forward. And we're looking at 3 weeks of that of an estimated $12,000 per week or $36,000. And then program supplies, which the team has done a really good job is before we even shut down, we had put a spending freeze on as a department. And only things that we were able to spend on, and this was just through ourselves internally, was anything that was related to COVID or was a fixed expense, an electric bill coming in, a water bill, et cetera. But as we get started back up, we're going to need to get some program supplies in, especially because some of these programs are going to look different, and program supplies may be masks and gloves as opposed to basketballs and kickballs, et cetera. So net operating cash estimated at the end of this fiscal year will be down to just under $900,000. So we will see quite a reduction there of over $200,000 in our fund balance and a loss for this fiscal year. What scares us is the unknown, and with the recreation revolving, what happens and how things play out from here. We're having discussions and we're trying to plan and think of forecast many different variables that can happen for us. One of the examples is the school year program may actually grow if the school year looks different, you know. So there's been talks about how the school year is going to look, and I'm not going to put any pressure on what the superintendent does. I can only imagine how busy that job is. But if people are going to school for reduced hours, then there may be more need for school year program. To the fact that people may be afraid to come back to programming. I don't see basketball being the same as it was last year. You know, we don't see a lot of those programs being the same, or people making choices or being able to work from home. So really hard to gauge where we would be going. So what we did for the time being is we put in a 25% reduction in our budgeted revenues for next fiscal year. And we ran our same budgeted expenses. And that would really bring us down in deplete us down to about a $500,000 fund balance. We can start out of the gates with some additional savings that would assist and help that and help us bring it up a little bit. We have, we're envisioning the potential to have 2 vacant positions. And if we save those for at least half the year, that would be $60,000. That if we save them for the entire year, that'd be $120,000 of savings. We would eliminate our capital projects. Would be a proposal, and that's a $205,000 savings that would be there. And that, if we put those savings into place, that would get us to that 821,000 in the fund balance, which would be a better component, but that would be really stretching the department thin on the reduced staffing. There would be a major component of concern for us. So just trying to play that out, that's trying to give us just a gauge so that we have that, okay, here's a 25% reduction in revenues. So this is what it's going to look like. Well, what if that's 50%? What if that's 40%? What if that's not a change? Then we can make adjustments and go from there and really cognitively try to think of how we go through operating the business next year. We put in the report to the town manager a lot more additional savings and plans, thought concepts, but these are the 2 that are really in our control, that we can make the decision and we can implement those. So these are things that the recreation department can say, we're not filling this position, and so we're going to save X amount of dollars. The others were more that we would need decisions made from, you know, levels above us, finance director, deputy town manager, et cetera. So we did.
So, for example, we've had discussions at the commission level about town transfers. The town takes transfers out of the recreation budget and BD Center budget that, you know, we've argued have been kind of, they don't match the services that we're getting. You have reached out to the town to see if they would give you relief there, correct, Ryan?
Correct. We talked, we threw out multiple different ways of looking for assistance, whether state level, federal level, or on the town level. And that was certainly one of them. I've said that story 100 times, I think. We had a meeting with deputy town manager, finance director, HR director, and Andy, Anna, and myself. And we talked about and reviewed all those different ways. It does seem clear to us that we're going to have to make decisions and rely on our own decisions. And that it's, you know, that's what we can control and that's what we can do. We didn't get any promises of any support outside of that right now.
So Ryan, this assumes no town transfers?
This assumes the town transfer is already in.
Oh, it's in there. Okay.
Yeah. So in our budgeted expenses of 1.3 is $220,000 roughly. That's off the top of my head of general fund transfers.
Okay, it's within 1.3. Got it. And
So
briefly,
in the 1.3.
right? Briefly, the 205 capital projects. Briefly, what are those? Which are those?
That was the barn at the Giroux property for $205,000 of computer capital. We still had. I kept $15,000 in for Emerson Pool because we've been chasing some leaks around at Emerson Pool, and I feel it's a safety component that we need to keep going there, keep making improvements on that.
Okay,
So Ryan, are these budgets approved?
No, fiscal year 21 budgets aren't approved. They would be approved at town meeting. This was what was presented to the town manager and to the finance committee in the first 2 rounds.
So do you have, knowing what you know now, I mean, those were pre-COVID budgets, right?
Correct.
Knowing what you know now, is there the opportunity to amend those budgets, or any room there that you should consider?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to play out, if we're going to get an opportunity to change what our budget looks like for town meeting or not. If we did, certainly that at least 265 would be on the table of making amendments right out of the gates. There's some other things within there, but it's small figure things that we would be cutting out. We probably wouldn't go to the state conference for the entire team this year. That'd be something we would, but that's, thousands of dollars, not 20 or thousands of dollars. So those would be the changes we would make, and we would probably not run with the revenues at 100% as of what we originally put. That's why I have that 75% down there, because I think saying we're going to get 100% of our revenues next year I would love to come back and report that we hit 100% of our revenues next year. I think 75% may even be an aggressive number. Peter, you and I have gone back, and I think you think the same way, that 75 might be a little too hopeful thinking.
Right.
For that.
Just simply social distancing creates a, you got to suggest that it's going to be probably closer to 50%, at least to the time being, until there's a vaccine and some sense of normalcy, which I think are, a month, if not a year away. But we don't know. We can't control the revenues, because, although we could do whatever we can to market, promote, do whatever we can to make our, the citizens feel like they're safe and their kids will be protected and things like that. I just don't, can we do something on the budget so that we can flex it if the revenues are lower? Beyond not filling in the full-time positions and capital projects.
As far as decisions at my level, the only other things to really start looking at are full-time positions, which would be a challenge in managing appropriately, especially under these times. So that's kind of the fear. So the challenge, again, that's at my level, what I have on the expense level that
there's non-payroll things you could do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the challenge is when the revenues usually identify to a product we're selling. So, I remember back in the day, I had a Pee Wee baseball program, and they cut all the expenditures, and they said we couldn't buy the T-shirts for the Pee Wee baseball program. And I was like, well, we sold the program as you get a T-shirt included. So then we either need to refund the people the $5 for the T-shirt, or we need to give them the T-shirt. That's the challenge. So when we make those changes, those revenues are usually attached to those changes. So if you say, okay, the program is now doing this summer camp, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit on Anna's thunder a little bit, but as we look at summer camp, it might be a little different, and there'll be some childcare will be a little different, because you're going to be having higher expenditures on safety precautions and overstaffing and doing things that your expenses are going to go up there. So the frill expenses come off. So we'll be writing a letter at some point in time when we nail down summer camp and say the following things aren't going to be included in summer camp, but the cost will still be the same because we've added A, B, and C. But most of our expenses are attached to our revenues, for lack of better terms, that you're buying a product that includes that expense. So our ski program, it has the expenses of, the ski lift tickets and the bus and all those type of components. If we cut off 2 weeks to save money, then we should cut off 2 weeks of the fee that we're charging.
Okay.
I'm going to jump over to BD quickly, and BD had a fund balance as of June 30th of just under $2.8 million. It's important to know that at one point in time, the finance department had us keep two different fund balances, one that was for capital projects and one was for operating. That changed about a year and a half or 2 years ago, that they said, you don't have to do that. You don't have to separate it. That was just done for our own practices, and the state says you only have to do it under one. So let's do it under one fund balance. So that's our total fund balance. Most of that fund balance has been added up over time by us contributing to that depreciation account, which is always a pain every year when we got to contribute $300,000 to $400,000 to the depreciation account, but that has enabled us to get that up to a $2.8 million fund balance, which in terms of, operating on right now on a stage one, that's a healthy fund balance. As Peter and I have talked a few times, as we start to talk about 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the road at BD, the concern is what will the membership numbers and the revenues look like. I did a little bit of the same breakdown for BD that where we stand today, we're $319,000 in the hole today. We have $12,000 remaining of refunds. We have about $53,000 of full-time payroll still left on the books for the fiscal year. 2 months of utilities still in the books for the fiscal year, and small amount of program supplies. So when that all incorporates in, our fund balance will be down to 2.3. So that will be quite a bit down, 400,000 plus down on our fund balance for this fiscal year, which was pretty much a break-even fiscal year in our budget of what we were trying to accomplish. So that's up through June 30th. Beyond June 30th, again, we did the same with the revenues that we did a 25% reduction. So that's 25% of our budgeted revenues is that almost $9 million. And we kept our fiscal year budgeted expenses the same. BD is even more tight than rec. If some of you remember back about 3 years ago, we had layoffs at BD because we were having some financial concerns there, and we cut as many corners as we could and made things as thin as we could over at BD at that point in time. So when we start to go looking through the budget and start looking for that fluff or that frill that's in the budget, we kind of have already skinned all that off. So that leaves us with that just under $1.7 million, where we could come up with for savings for this year was to eliminate a group exercise coordinator position that's empty right now of $17,000, and to reduce capital projects by 50% down to $55,000. I'd like to normally say we can reduce capital projects, but operating a pool, there's always something that we need to do that it's a capital projects level to keep that operating and make sure we're ahead of the curve on that. So having that $55,000 on the budget makes sense. And 110 is down from what we would normally traditionally be doing for capital. So even cutting that was already down, and then we cut it in half. That would leave us with $1,760,000 in fund balance. So if you go back to where we started, we were at 2.8, and now we would be down to 1.7 at the end of next fiscal year. So that's really whittling down that BD fund balance, and that's starting to concern, and that's also at the 25% revenue. And as Peter said, we don't know how that's going to play out. Andy will talk a little bit more, but when it comes to BD operating, but we don't envision that swim lessons are going to look the same as they did prior to. We don't envision that membership's going to look the same that it did prior to. And we don't know how much we want to force members to come back and start paying if they're not willing to come back. That's only going to make them quit and not come back to us at any point in time. So we got to kind of balance that line of saying, okay, some members are going to be roaring ready to get in and get going and swimming right away. And some members are going to say, I'm going to take my time and I'm going to sit back and I don't want to be charged until I come back into the facility. So that's where we stand.
Hey, Ryan, because I'm new, I'm going to preface everything with that because I'm new for a while.
Not going to let you use that after one more meeting, Paul.
I know. What is the critical, when do we get concerned with these balances? I see 1.8 million, 1.7 million. That's a lot of money. What's a critical level? What's your level of concern with both this fund and the previous fund? I'm trying to get a sense what the floor is here.
In this fund, the old guidelines that we used to have, and it used to be two fund balances. It used to be a capital fund balance and an operating fund balance. They used to say your operating fund balance had to fund at least 6 months of your operating expenses, was the guideline we were given from finance. When we made the layoffs, that operating fund balance had already dropped below the 6%, the 6 months. So that had already gone down. So most of our fund balance is what would be, but I think it's available to, my understanding from our finance department is it becomes available to us for times like this. It's typically mostly supposed to be going in towards capital, into replacing the roof when it comes time to replace the roof, replace the parking lot when it comes time to replace the parking lot. Because as an enterprise fund, we're on the hook for that. So the light plant and the water and sewer, they end up carrying large fund balance because their capital is enormous. But then all of a sudden they do a, $5 million project and they fund it through their depreciation accounts that they have. So that's the concern, is if we start to go on and BD ages, 14, 15 years, and we start to need, 6-figure to potentially 7-figure repairs at BD, we start to lose that place that it's available from. So at that 1.7, I'm in the nervous mode right there, because our dehumidification system that we did prior to me getting here, I want to say it was about 6 years ago. Andy, correct me if you know it exactly, but that was $1.5 million. So construction down there is not cheap. So when you hear numbers like that to replace a dehumidification system, and I think we're in good shape on that element, but there'll be pieces of the pool that it's going to start being recommended that we replace, whether it's the flooring, whether it's the siding, et cetera, that will be in the close to the 7 digits. So I would be nervous, Paul, at that 1.7.
No, thank you. That's good background. Yep.
That's not in the past, I used to have an exact number that they would say. I wish I could give you an exact number that they would say.
Well, I mean, it's a sense based on history and based on the, the aged infrastructure, I guess.
Yep. So, again, the challenge has been trying to do the right thing and refund people and not having the revenues come in right now and having some fixed expenses that go through, and being able to have those and find ways to pay those. The only way to pay them right now is through depleting down that fund balance. And so those are the challenges where we're at. We're trying to, on both ends of the business, cut corners and save money as much as we can. We're also talking about, when we go back into action, that the full-time staff needs to step up another level. So I'm going to give an example of, we have a bunch of staff at BD that have their lifeguard certification. So we went through and had the assistant general manager get his lifeguard certification, and some of the personal trainers get their lifeguard certification. And so if a personal trainer isn't meeting with clients, for the first 6 months to maybe even 12 months, they may have to be on the pool deck lifeguarding to save us that money, where in the past they haven't been doing that. So it will be pushing that full-time staff to even an extra element there. And the same thing goes on the recreation end. And I'm going to use myself as an example. We went through and we identified what people can do for projects, and by not filling the part-time positions or by not filling the full-time positions. So I would be the Wachusett ski coordinator, on 4 Tuesday nights in January to go up and supervise that. And I would supervise the basketball program. And we wouldn't hire someone to come in and do that. So it won't save us the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're looking for, but it will save us what we can do, the tens of thousands of dollars in savings. And we've done that across the board with all the full-time staff to identify where they can step up to the plate and give us extra savings, or extra revenues, because some people bring in the possibility of running additional classes or something. So
Maybe you'll get to this later on, but is there, when we restart, whatever that exactly that means, are there hidden restart costs in terms of safety and training? And are we at the position we can even think about that yet? I mean, are there additional restart costs?
Yeah, so I believe there will. The first program out of the gates that comes to mind, though, is summer camp, and summer camp will probably drastically change, and Anna will go into it. So there'll be savings from not doing field trips, for example, to you save that, and you can now use that for extra PPE and, extra, because we're anticipating, we haven't got the guidelines yet, and I'll go over that in the restart mode, but we haven't got the guidelines from the state for summer camp yet. But the groups may be smaller rather than 15 to 20 kids in a group. It may be 8 kids in a group with 2 counselors. So the staffing ratios are going to be higher. So our staff cost per kid will be higher. So there definitely will be elements in there that will be additional cost. The ones that I could see would be BD and the childcare, because they're not going to have really good cost savings to go off of. And they're going to, those are going to be additional expenses coming on. We're trying to clear that up right now with the town about what PPE will be provided for and what staff that will be. I'm trying to clarify if that will be all staff, part-time and full-time. It's pretty clear to me that they're talking about providing it for full-time staff. But when, full-time staff is a fraction of what we have for staffing. The part-time staff is really, we talk 100 to 200 staff that we have within the payroll of part-time staff when we're operating fully. So that will be interesting. But we do anticipate additional cost.
Thank you.
Is there any other conversation on finances?
As far as you know, is the town doing anything in terms of providing assistance to anybody, any third parties or any other departments?
Andy, remind me if I'm saying it differently. We kind of asked that question bluntly, and we didn't think, I don't think so. We asked what other town departments are doing. Most are operating off the general fund, so they're, under that budget assumption, not revenue reliant, except for the light plant and water and sewer. And I don't think they're going through tough times. I hate to speak for them. I'm not speaking for them, but I don't think they're seeing the impact we're seeing right now. I don't know. Outside of that, there's some nonprofits, some private businesses. Linda, have you heard of anybody getting assistance beyond town departments?
I have not. We're just now on Thursday of this week, we'll be dealing with some legislative emergency procedures for dealing with municipal budgets. So we're on a slightly different track at this point. But no, to answer your question, no.
Yeah, there's, I don't know. There's a whole bigger element than what I'm usually in my own world here, but I don't know if assistance being provided at any facilities or financial subsidy. I haven't been made privy to too much of that at all, Peter. I guess the questions would be, some facilities are potentially are rented out by the town. How's that playing out? I don't know.
Yeah, just at the Beatty Center, we've had an ability to work a little bit more with the facilities group recently. They were certainly hands-off maybe for the first month, but have been in-house a little bit more, which is great. I know Ryan Orr and company and facilities got a lot on their plate as they reopen college, buildings across, Concord, and also just on the grounds front. The grounds is being challenged with, getting to residents' needs to, the spring is upon us, grass is growing. So we've, not really been engaged with them so much. I mean, our real, savings, we'll say, or support has been from our vendors. Compass, our cleaning crew, has been on hold to, DirecTV has suspended this service. So just a variety of things on that front that have been helpful, we'll say, most on the expenditure front, not those direct things from the townhouse, we'll say.
Linda, if you could keep us cognitive of anything that you hear regarding like state funding or federal funding. I'm on my state association meetings and we talk and everybody's kind of saying, we're hearing that in the next stimulus package, it might include some municipalities I've had the staff tracking lost revenues the entire time so that we can have a good reporting system for that. I know right now the only thing that's happening is that the COVID direct expenses are being tracked because there should be some reimbursement for that. So we bought a stack of hand sanitizer wipes that we usually use at Beatty, and we had them delivered to the fire department, and we paid for it. But we tracked that, and they're recording that because that should be reimbursed for us through that. And that's just one of those parts where, you know, we had the resource that could get them, so we were able to do that. And then we're tracking. I'm jumping the gun on Anna's presentation a little bit, but at summer camp we are renting hand sanitizer units to put out at the facilities or just across recreation as a whole. So we'll track those expenses because those are put out specifically because of response to COVID-19. So we'll track all those expenses and hopefully be able to get reimbursement on those. But Linda, if you hear of any other things, or I guess just in general to kind of think of us as the small businesses thought of across town, if there's things and concepts out there for the small business, can it be considered for the recreation department as well?
Yeah, I can do that. And I think tomorrow is a meeting for the Economic Vitality Committee. And I know that Beth Williams, I think is going to be speaking to some grant opportunities that may or may not impact your department in general. I'm curious about whether or not you submitted lost revenues as COVID expenses to the town.
We have not. We've only been guided to do direct expenses.
Okay, well, you should stay tuned on that because there could be changes in that in the future.
Okay. Yeah.
What do we mean by that?
Things just keep changing. What do I mean by that? If you
lost revenues.
Yeah, if you already had program subscription.
We obviously have significant lost revenues.
Yeah, exactly. So if you had program subscriptions that then you've now refunded, you know, the guidelines for some of these reimbursements is either not yet developed or gets, you know, rewritten from week to week. So I'm sure you're going to be able to, when the opportunity, if there is an opportunity to present that, you'll be ready to do that because you know what that is.
Okay. Yeah. And if you hear it, give us a shout out.
Ryan, is it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had that right out of the gates. We had the team.
Is this something the town manager and mentioned?
I was using it as an example, some guidelines that came down for some municipal funding that is going to be available for certain very specific activities, and that's going to be talked about tomorrow at the Economic Vitality Committee. And I was using that as an example of things just keep coming down that we, you know, have to stay on top of as best we can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the question of, I mean, who should Ryan reach out to get those answers?
Well, I think he has both, you know, obviously you have the deputy town manager who's, you know, should probably be top of this, Kate, right? And also the finance department.
Okay.
And with your senior management team meetings, hopefully some of these new developments are coming down there too.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. I'll try to see if finance has a spreadsheet that they would envision that we can start inputting it in so we can be even more at the forefront on it. That was one of the things that when listening to the state association was brought up right away. And I had gone through that in the ice storms of 08 down in Connecticut that we were able to get lost revenues back. So we asked the staff to start recording that immediately and tracking that so that we can be on top of that if it becomes available. That would be life-saving. Anything else on finances?
Nope.
Just
Keep on going here.
quickly on staff updates, Zach's position was vacated. He moved on to Arlington Parks and Rec. We had posted it, but we are not going to fill that right now. We're going to hold off on that and wait till finances are better and things are going smoother for us. We didn't want to take it off of the budget so that if things came back and we were able to add it on, we would be able to at the discretion of the town manager. So it still showed in our budgeted expenses is our goal to do that, but to kind of have that tag item underneath, which I had displayed earlier on this screen, the vacant positions. And right now I just carried them out for half a year, but that can go for the full year or it can go for 3 months, depending on how things play out. So we wanted to still have the position available and not eliminate the position or the financing for the position, but to say we're not filling it till we're comfortable or we're back into the mode of that. I don't think I have anything else for staff updates. Facility updates, I will try to jump through on a capital projects level and then talk about what's happening in facilities with the governor's orders after that. So White Pond, we're still working with the design team on developing the White Pond master plan. Most of that is really based on accessibility to the waterfront, and whether it's handicapped accessibility or just basic accessibility to access down there. And the rest is really on natural resources type of conditions to create the hill to not have so much runoff that is occurring. So won't be really things that you're spending your money for and you walk out and you go, wow, look at this. It's a new playground. It's going to be a lot of drainage and detention ponds and a lot of stuff like that, because that's one of the major issues that's occurring there. So that's really what they're focusing on right there out of that group. Giroux, we've been working through with the design team through the town agency. So we went to the Natural Resource Commission meeting the other day and presented the plan for that. They had some issues and concerns that the design team's coming back to take a look at. We're hoping to go through with Giroux and be able to bid it in 2 phases because it would still need some funding from town meeting to complete it, but to bid it in 2 phases and start the construction potentially this fall. There's been a lot of talk in the community prior and during the COVID-19 situation about when is Giroux going to be available to us? How come we bought this property and there's just no trespassing signs around? So that would be a component that they're looking to, is to get it bid and get it so that they're going through those phases there. And then Emerson and Rideout we're for the most part completed with the construction over there. This is going to move me on to my next element, which is operations of the parks. And the governor's orders that came out last Monday, or guidance that came out last Monday, had 2 that impacted us as a department or how we look at things in the town. One was the public beaches, which I will get into in a second. And the other component was public park spaces. So originally, the town manager's office had ordered to take the rims off the backboards and to lock up the tennis courts and lock the gate at White Pond because people were not social distancing right out of the initial order that came out. So that decision was made in the town manager's level, and those have been closed until this past Friday, at which point the town manager's office had agreed to reopen the basketball courts, tennis courts, and public park spaces effective on Friday. It was by the governor's order to be Monday, but with staffing and timing, they did it on Friday. So the Parks and Playgrounds division of the facilities team went out and did all that work on Friday and opened up facilities. So Emerson and Rideout are available for basketball play. I don't want to say basketball play is encouraging games, but like shooting baskets, tennis play, all following, of course, the governor's guidance on face covering and social distancing. And that also opened up White Pond, which seemed to stir up a hornet's nest this past weekend. So White Pond became available, and I apparently got pretty crowded on Saturday. So police were reported down to the facility. Right now, the pond's still open as a park facility. It's not open as a waterfront beach facility, which is what we operate as the department. So the recreation department is not a parks and recreation department. We operate the recreation program. So we operate the waterfront, beachfront, which is what people buy memberships for down there. I'll get into that, but right now we had our initial starting date would have been this past Saturday, but we had postponed that to June 13th at the earliest for the waterfront operation, beachfront operation of White Pond. So that's what's happening at the facilities in town. And I'm going to jump ahead of you unless somebody has questions on facilities. I'm going to jump ahead of you on the operations report and talk about the White Pond reopening plan, because that's the first one to come out and it kind of sets the tone a little bit. Anybody have any questions on facilities? Okay, so
let's keep going. Great.
Okay, I don't have the right. I didn't open up the right PowerPoint, so I'm missing updates on this. So I'm gonna talk through my updates with the beach updates. Anna, do you have the beach updates document?
I do. The reopen document?
Yeah, can you I'll stop screen sharing, and can you share that in the screen?
Yes, let me figure out how to do that.
The governor sent out really good, or like a state office has sent out really good, clear guidelines as to reopening procedures for the beaches, which we're hoping fall suit for us for summer camps and for fitness centers. But it really identified a bunch of key points that we're able to work off of. That's my PowerPoint.
How am I touching that?
Oh, that's the one. Oh, go back. Use that PowerPoint. That was the one I was looking for. I apparently saved the wrong one to my hard drive. Okay, so I can use.
There we go.
Cool. All right. So this is from the governor's guidance for reopening beaches. First thing is, and I'm sure you're going to see this across all things, DPH orders and guidelines for face coverings and group size are in place. So that's no groups no larger than 10. Social distancing of 6 feet. Face coverings whenever you can't. Social distancing is impossible. So that's, I anticipate you're going to see that across everything. But that was like the first bullet on it. After that, it went through in some of the key components that would manage the White Ponds beach reopening, because it's kind of written for Cranes Beach, Plymouth beaches, and White Pond beach type of thing. So it's all over the place. 12-foot distance required between toweling and beach groups. So we're designing a grid where we will have your kind of plot in the beach that you would have for the day, for your time period that you're there, that would have a 12-foot barrier or walking barrier in between. Social distance guidelines and cleaning guidelines for restrooms. They put out a whole guidance for opening restrooms that we can follow. And it tells you how to clean the restrooms, how often to clean the restrooms, how to have people lined up for the restrooms, et cetera. So we're going to follow those guidelines for public restrooms. Lifeguards need to stay on the stands and be 6 feet away from patrons, except in emergencies. Admissions is encouraged through online reservation system. They want to reduce patron staff contact points when possible. So Anna, can you go to the next screen? We used these as our real guiding forces as to what we're putting in place. Down at White Pond, we've identified 16 beach locations that are 10 by 10 that would be something that could be reserved by your family. And between each beach location is a 12-foot walking path to the next beach location. So all around your corners, you will have 12 foot constantly, all the ways around. So it limited us to just 16 beach locations down at White Pond when we measured out 10 by 10 spots with the 12 foot barriers in between. We're going to do the locations can be reserved in advance in 3-hour intervals. We're still nailing down how far in advance. We're thinking like 4 days in advance you can reserve for that day. But we're going to nail that down and be able to send that out to the members. And we're doing in 3-hour intervals. It's actually 2 hours and 45 minutes for most of the blocks, but we figure that's a fair amount of time to get to the beach, enjoy the beach, but able to move on and get to the next people coming out to enjoy the beach. 16 locations at the, that's not supposed to say 3 hours, that's supposed to say 3 rotations. So we have 3 rotations on the 3-hour intervals and 5 person average in each plot. That gives us 240 people to visit the beach per day. That would have been a great day for us last year. So weekdays last year, our average attendance was 40 to 60 people coming to the beach total. On the weekend, we'd be 150 to 200. We did go past 240 on a few occasions, but it's a handful of occasions that we went past 240. So we'd be able to accommodate 240 people at the beach on a daily basis under that system. And we would have staff protocols in place to protect staff. Some of those are going to be determined town-wide. So there are going to be protocols that are going to be the same for me. So whether it's I'm doing a temperature check before I leave the house, I can't, if I have a cough, if I have any of the symptoms that are identified, I need to not leave the house. I need to text my manager and say, I'm not coming in. I have this scenario. To making sure that the PPE is available for the staff, to going through that staff, typically picture White Pond, they all took a break and 3 lifeguards would be sitting at a picnic table all hanging out together. Well, that picnic table isn't going to be there anymore. They have to have their own camp chair that they're going to bring in and out with them, and they have to separate from each other during those time periods and separate from people so that they're practicing social distancing. So there will be things in place that will go across there. So Anna, can you go to the next slide? No, that's not supposed to be there. Go down to that next one. Thank you. So here's just our quick grid that shows you, and the waterfront is on the front, and we have 4 locations at the front. So we're gonna call it first row A, B, and C. A, B, C, and D. Second row A, B, C, and D. Third row and fourth row. And so we'll spread out, and then Anna, if you could go to the next slide. What they're calling for and recommending in the social distance guidelines is to not have everybody coming in and checking in at once. They don't want to have that crowd show up at 10 o'clock and everybody's kind of rushing down for a beach spot. So we would only take 4 slots and their reservations would start at 10. And then another 4 slots, you can see slots 2A, 2C, 4A, 4C would start at 10:15. And then slots 1B through 3D, they would start at 10:30. And slots 2B through 4D would start at 10:45. So it's keeping the flow of people in the parking lot at a minimal impact, down the steps at a minimal impact, coming in through the area at a minimal impact. It doesn't mean we're going to eliminate social distancing. Someone who has a 10 o'clock slot can very well show up at 11, and we're not going to tell them you can't show up at 11. That's going to be hard for us to manage. They just can only be in that beach spot from 10 to 12:45. We're certainly hoping it works within those time periods. And then some of the slots in the fourth row may have picnic tables. If they have picnic tables, we have to wipe those down in between reservations. The other slots would be on beach sand, so we don't have to wipe anything down for that. And it would almost be, picture a community garden. It would almost be staked off and plotted out so that people would have, their square, and we would have that identified so you could find that when you come down to the beach and not be working through. And then the head person down at the beach is just going to go in and check at each of the locations and be like, Kane family, you're here. All right, everybody's here. All right, good. That's what's going to happen for the check-in. It's not going to be swiping cards and coming through, because that's what DPH is trying to remove, is that interaction, that engagement of a staff, reviewing everybody's cards and those touch points happening over and over. In the water, when you're swimming, you do not need to wear a mask. So we're going to try to put out some promotional materials that are trying to tell people, because the issue we can envision is families that know each other, 2 toddlers are playing in the water, 3 inches of water right next to each other, and the parents are standing next to each other talking. And that's what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to have them separated out. The advantage of White Pond is when you do go swimming and you go out swimming, it's a huge swimming area. So it avoids a lot of that engaging. You can separate from people if you want to in that swimming area. The areas where we see the problem is at that beachfront, where people like to socially interact. So we're going to try to educate and communicate the best we can within there. The other component we're doing is we're going to eliminate the raft that's out in the deep end, and we're going to add extra buoys to the rope to kind of create a rest spot in case somebody got tired out there where they were able to rest on the raft before. But the raft is a big touch point. Once you get up on the raft, you can't social distance. It just, unfortunately, it takes away a lot of fun, but it also is just too hard to manage for us. And to get a staff member out there, to be out there and not have their mask on, et cetera, that would be a challenge for us as well. So we're going to eliminate the raft this year for that. Our initial communication to the White Pond members was that we would not open until June 13th at the earliest. We're still striving for that. That's going to be a tough turnaround. So we're striving for that. If not, then we would look for the following weekend. But we want to nail that down and then get communication out to the White Pond members as to this is what it's going to be, and this is how it's going to look, and this is how you'll go about your business for that. So we think it could be successful. Part of this will be the first example for us. Part of coming back from COVID-19 is we have to submit a COVID-19 action plan to the Department of Public Health. And so it will go through and detail all of these things right down to what we're doing for cleaning and staffing protocols and all of that type of stuff. And that will kind of really be the good guideline for us to set for summer camp and BB, et cetera. So in as quick as I could do it, that's the White Pond look of how we're envisioning opening this summer. I got to say, everything's going to be different. And people are going to need to realize that. White Pond's going to be different. Summer camp's going to be different. BD's going to be different. We're going to do the best we can to provide elements of recreation and getting outdoors and enjoying your family and your summer to the best we can, following the guidelines and keeping things safe. It's a challenge. It's like my head is trying to figure this out for all these programs. But I have confidence in our team that they're smart. They have the abilities. They're thoughtful in what they're processing, and they care about what they're doing, and they want to put a good product out. And I believe we'll be able to do it in those 3 locations. It's I think Anna will tell you when she talks about summer camps, it's challenging, and it's hard to not think of summer camp the way summer camp always is. But that's what we're having to do right now.
Ryan, I have to get off the call. I apologize. One thing to think about, the superintendents put together a phase 4 task force. And I don't know if you guys have, they're trying to put together.
Looks like somebody wants summer camp to start.
When does summer camp open? They have a phase 4 task force. Excuse me, both of you, for 2 minutes. I need 2 minutes. I just need 2 minutes. Anyway, the task force starts tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I know that they're looking to collaborate with rec and other community partners. I'm on the task force and I'm happy. I don't know if Anna's on it or if one of you, if anyone else is, but happy to report back. I know that in terms of summer services for special education, everything's going virtual. And so I know that you guys previously have teamed up with, all right, you know what,
So we've been in communication with Maureen, and she's been thinking of us on the task force. They haven't placed us on the task force, but in all their communication, they're talking about connecting with community partners, including recreation. And we've been in direct communication with Lori by email about what's happening with summer school, and saying, we know you don't know what's happening with school, but think of us and what we're doing when you are including in that. And then we're also communicating to her about use of school spaces in the summer. So we don't have those nailed down yet, but those are some of the proposals we're putting out to the town manager's office and to the superintendent's office simultaneously. But that's been part of the conversation. I've seen that as part of the conversation at the school board too, when they talked about not having summer school. It was brought up clearly that Concord Recreation may need space, so that was brought up there as well. So Casey, absolutely keep us in tune, and Anna and I would join in. We'd be thrilled to join in on any of those meetings when it came up on the agenda as to recreation.
Okay, I'll connect with you separately tomorrow because they've got the first meeting at 9 a.m.
Okay,
I'm going to have to sign off.
Good luck.
Hey, Ryan, quick question. What's your sense of how the White Pond structure that you're showing here would be, I hate to use the word regulated or managed or overseen or implemented? Is that recreation staff? Who's?
Yep. So during
Okay.
beach operation hours, it's recreation staff that oversees the facility. So we have part-time staff that oversees it. We were fortunate to carry over the old White Pond director from the old facility, and she's a tough cookie, take no bull type of person, which is kind of what you need for this. So I assume our staff will be challenged during the summer, and it's hard for high school and college kids to get challenged from adults as lifeguards, but we would have, our vision is to have an adult there, whether it is Ann, our waterfront director, or another adult on staff that can really kind of manage the BS scenarios to try to work through those, because you're asking people to do things differently, and they're naturally going to go back to some of their old habits, and we're going to have to challenge them on those. And politically, a lot of these things are political footballs, and we don't want to be a political football environment. So it's a matter of our approach of just saying, hey, listen, this is what we have to do in order to be open. We can't be open if we don't do this. So this is how we're asking for you to do it. I know this isn't what you prefer. This isn't what I would prefer, but this is the only way we could be open, is to set up these type of guidelines. Yeah.
Well, the good news is people are used to doing things differently. The other good news is this isn't the Lake of the Ozarks where people are jumping on top of each other. So
yeah, I'm told it was this past Saturday. So
it was okay. It wasn't there.
Anna, you want to go in on camp quickly, and then Andy on Beatty? Just kind of a concept of what you're thinking.
Yeah. So the minute that this all started, we started thinking about summer camp. The minute camp ends in August, we start planning for the next year. So thankfully, we had a lot of good things already underway, including most of our hiring. So we are feeling comfortably staffed right now. We continue to work hard to make sure that we're talking with the health, and we'll work with them to get our campsites accredited as we usually do. I think one of the other huge positives that I just want to reiterate going into the rest of this conversation is that we have a selfless group of team members who have dedicated hours and hours of time, creativity, to participate in local and national conversations that are with other professionals in our field, preparing for various different scenarios in terms of what camp will look like. So thanks to all of them for all of their efforts. As you know, the governor's directive was that camps would be potentially allowed to reopen in phase 2. And we are optimistic that that sort of announcement would come out around the week of June 7th right now. He could say camps could start immediately, or maybe he'll give a date in the future. We're not sure, but again, we're preparing for all options. While there aren't any regulations out there right now, we are preparing for a couple of things, including required smaller groups, potentially different sites to host camps so we can spread the kids out, PPE for our staff. And we've also made some decisions preemptively where the camp day will look a little bit different. We're not going to be going on any field trips, no matter what the regulations potentially allow. We won't be bringing in vendors to run programs for the kids like we might have done in the past, things like that. So we're making the decisions that we can right now. So when the announcement does come out, it's a little bit easier, and there's some more things that are already taken care of. So that's been really helpful. I will say I've been working really hard to acquire the PPE that we're anticipating needing for camp. So there's about 165 other rec departments in Massachusetts. And in the conversations that we've all been a part of, many of them are in a position to purchase PPE right now without the guarantee that they're going to have their revenues come in. So we're really grateful that we do have a little bit of flexibility for spending. So we've purchased some N95 masks, disposable masks, wipes, disinfectants. We're renting porta potties and hand sanitizer stations. So we feel really prepared in terms of accessing supplies that we will be required to have in some capacity to run camps. So that feels like a huge win. We are also, like I said, considering different camp location options. So if we need to spread the kids out, if we're only required to have 35 kids at a site, what are our options? So we're working with other town departments and people within the community to see where we could spread out. We're working on concepts of contactless drop-off. So what would a drive-up, drop-off scenario look like? We're formulating different liability waivers to parents about the risk of attending camp, even if we put all these things in place. So we're working very hard behind the scenes to do what we can now. So when the directives come out, we have some options to pick from. We have been promising people and still are promising people that if they sign up for camp and they feel like their plans need to change for COVID reasons or otherwise, that we'll provide refunds with no cancellation fees. And I think that that has helped a lot of people make the decision to sign up for camp right now and trust that they'll be able to participate. With that said, we have almost 900 kids signed up for camp, which is close to 50% of what our goal is on a regular non-COVID year. So that is better than we anticipated. As of right now, that's not to say that it could be a lot of people that signed up just to grab a slot and they might plan to drop 4 weeks of camp or all of camp in the coming days. So it's a comfortable number. That number also right now would cover what if we were to run a full camp with a full set of staff, that registration number would cover our staff expenses. So again, in terms of covering our costs, at least staffing wise right now, we're good. And we are anticipating a reduction of about $40,000 of staff needs. So if we have to reduce our group sizes, we therefore might not need as many staff. So we halted our hiring where we were as of March, and that will save us about $40,000 if we don't hire the remaining position. So we're in a good spot, I'd say, in terms of revenue and expense for camps. We will continue to work with families to come up with plans that work with them in terms of payments if money's tight and things like that. Continuing to welcome people to apply for financial assistance as well. So if you know of anybody that's feeling the crunch of COVID, they're welcome to apply for assistance. And we're
the 900 number, how does that compare to the registrations as of this point in time versus the total camp subscription?
So currently that's 900 unique registrations.
Right.
And our goal for the full year is about 1,800 kids.
Yeah,
right, but you tend to register a lot of people between now and when the camps start, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
and
like
a regular year, we would have had and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we would have had a larger number of registrations at this point in the year for sure, being that camp would start, in 4 weeks. So it's definitely less than in summers past. I'd say today alone, I've had probably 10 people email to withdraw from camp, and that hasn't been happening in the weeks prior. So people are starting to make their decisions on what their summer is going to look like, and that may or may not include us. I can get the numbers of where we were at this date last year though, and let you know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so it sounds like you do have the ability to flex your staff based on the numbers of people.
Yep. Yep. And right now, if the governor says that, camps can reopen, our goal start date is June 29th, which is already eliminating our first week of camp, which was supposed to be June 22nd. With that said, as we get those regulations and determine how prepared we're feeling, that start date could push out, which would then affect our numbers and such as well. So we're optimistically waiting for those regulations to come out and hope that we're prepared for what we're thinking is going to be on that list of requirements. and we're just going to keep chugging away.
Great. Thanks, Anna.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's really tough to plan on without regulations. So I'm sure you guys are doing your best you can, and so great. Thanks.
We're hoping for a little more heads up than we got on the beaches. The beaches were less than a week in advance.
Yeah.
But like I said about the beach guidelines, they were pretty good. It was pretty clear as to what the expectations were. So hoping the same follows up with camps.
Good. Right.
You want to touch upon what you're
Andy?
thinking, Edie?
Yep, just looking at this White Pond slide right now that talks about some reservations. So that's a system through the MyRec software, which is new for us, sort of just got rolled out in January. But with that said, we're hopeful to have it be part of the BD mix going into potentially opening in phase 2. But phase 2 is outdoor pools. So we as an indoor pool and fitness facility will fall under phase 3, which is around that June 29th date, if nothing else gets pushed out. So with it, we will sort of learn some lessons as White Pond gets that managed through as far as members signing up for it and how that plays out with just communications back and forth. On our front, we've had around 23 cancellations of members. So if we're looking at 1,500 members, we're pretty happy with that number at this point in time. Obviously, our opening plan is yet to be pushed out the door. Everyone's got a membership on hold for $1 just to keep it active. So again, as Ryan highlighted earlier, we're not charging anyone, but we're keeping them in the system, allowing them to join, sign up for programming and everything else, but a little bit of an on-hold basis as we play things out. We have done the refunds on the aquatics and group exercise front and related to the finale for the winter and the spring programming. What we do for summer is to be announced. We're going to probably run with group exercise online, for a longer period of time. People have found comfort with that. They're connecting to their instructors. They're socializing. We're hopeful that type of programming sets us up for the fall. On the aquatic side, it's really been a hiring piece related to outdoor facilities, we'll say, White Pond being at the top of the list. We're getting some good traffic in the door because other facilities are closed as far as whether it be pools or rec departments this summer. So that's one piece of good news. The other piece is, I think, highlighted earlier, that our star staff members in regards to Lynn Donahue and Ann Berger coming back to manage the waterfront director spot at White Pond and that pool front at Emerson. So some good news on that aquatic front, we'll say, on the staffing side. Just a touch base of what we have done at BD. We've did a survey the first part of May for about 7 days. It came back with an area of 240 responses. I think, a little bit of good news everywhere as far as people wanting to come back, eager to come back, raising some questions that, keep us thinking. And the biggest thing was, what are they looking for in BD after shutdown? So we can, take that input and say, yep, we're going to implement new cleaning protocols. Yes, we're going to separate machines. Yes, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. So I think we're going to get at most of those shutdown wishes. We can't get at every one of them, but with it, we should be able to open up with a good product, we'll say. And again, matching a reservation system for aquatics, fitness rooms, as far as spacing people out, giving them a slot to work with, and hopefully, a clear direction as far as how do they get into the building and out of the building. Other things, I highlighted, the facilities coming in-house and doing some work for us. We hope to have that continue. And with it, people are going to have an expectation of a different facility. Everyone's aware of that. Everyone's on board right now, working through that process. Just looking for that extra direction from the state. I think the summer programs piece will be a key thing for us to see how our aquatics plays out, particularly on the swim lesson front.
Great. So are you, to accommodate more people with less machines, are you thinking about expanded hours, or how are you going to accommodate
Yeah.
that, Andy?
I didn't touch on it, but let me add that we have put together a draft as far as a reopening piece. Went to the townhouse on May 14th, and with it talks about, that separation of machines, that limitation of some of the fitness rooms. Expansion of hours isn't really in the mix there. We're hopeful that people have different schedules a little bit these days, and that they'll be able to, get into the slots that work for them. I think people will naturally rotate to some of the quieter times. We did get a request for, hey, if you're open at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll come swim. Not going to be able to do that, but we understand that, people would want to make sure that they can get into the facility, get to their location. So, we'll be able to, move the cardio room around a little bit. Obviously have some closed machines. We're hopeful to do some personal training in the fitness studio downstairs and outside on a patio with a tent, where those clients, which are typically older, are more comfortable. But, that first in the door, make your reservation. There's value with people understanding the MyRec system and making that reservation and being the first in, but there's also value with, oh boy, I see a slot where there's only one person in the fitness room. I think that's going to have a lot of value for people. So as we open up and what that cost is for membership, still tossing around just about everything, whether the first week is free, and there's as you come in the door in the second week, your membership could start. We could do a start flat for everyone on September 1. It'll be, we need to get people comfortable and with it start sharing those stories as they get coming in the door. And with it, I think there'll be a lot of success stories within the region that'll sort of get people excited and saying, yep, there's a lot of value with a fitness center with a pool, and with it, especially one that's got some good oversight and sort of following the protocols and best recommendations.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andy.
Yep.
Any questions on Andy's report? So where are we on this agenda
Only other thing
here?
just to report on reopening is just the visitor center. We're hearing phase 2 for that. But that's going to take a lot of directive from the town manager's office and how things go about. That's one of those which we hired Beth because she's so excited and aggressive, and then it's like, okay, I'm trying to hold the reins back a little bit on her too simultaneously, because I'm like, okay, we can't have the world come flooding into Concord right away. So we're trying to work through with what the visitor center will look like, but we're looking at limited services, like almost kiosk type things out of the gate for us to be able to start with that. I don't have anything else on our startup because those are the major things, and a bunch of them are waiting for guidance from the state and the governor's office, and we'll be hopefully getting approval through our local board of health and town manager's office to start up with White Pond, and at that point, when we do, we will forward it out to all our members in our community to say this is what it's going to look like, and this is what we're putting out there. That's been a little bit of the challenge, is getting, I think people want the communication out faster, so we sent something out that said, hey, we're aware that there's the guidance, here's the guidance from the state. We attached that document that shows the guidance and said we're not gonna open any earlier than June 13th, just because we still gotta get the staff on board trained, we still gotta make sure we're doing it correctly, and we still have to get the right approvals in order to open. So I think that's it from us.
So school year status and enrollments.
Those, I mentioned that early on. Those are strong.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Assuming
Hopefully
school
that
goes
will
back to
continue.
normal, we're in great shape for
right.
that. But that, that's that big curveball. We don't know what's coming down the road with that. So we're just going to try to stay in tune, and hope that's good that Casey's on that committee, and try to be in touch with her on that. Superintendent's been a great ally and asset for us. She's been thinking of our department, and not to say she's going to give us the house, because she's got to take care of, make sure she's looking at what she's doing there, but she's thinking that recreation is involved in a lot of these decisions. So it's been good to hear.
Great. Excellent. You guys have done your homework. Appreciate all the input and, keep us apprised. Not sure, we'll talk, I guess, figure out when we could next meet, but this has been very helpful. Reports from the liaisons. Linda, do you have anything good you want to share?
I'll just say,
You went back on
You're on mute.
challenges
There you go.
you've been dealing with are unbelievable. And it sounds like you're responding as proactively as you can, playing the same waiting game that everyone has been playing in terms of when do the next guidelines come down, when do the next directions come down. If it's helpful for you to come to the select, when things are clear about when you can open, if it's helpful for you to come and do a sort of PSA at the select board meeting, let us know. That may or may not help you. And I hear the concern about budgets, but as I say, we're just looking at some issues there ourselves this Thursday. And so maybe after Thursday, you may be able to get more guidance on whether or not the town can assist with the transfer costs or whatever, the capturing COVID-related programmatic costs, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Whatever systems guidance we can get. Again, we are a unique situation in the town in that, the other enterprise funds get, they have not seen any interruption in their fees. We have seen a very material interruption in our fees, and also don't want to.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to comment that also on Thursday, we're sort of resuming our liaison committee reports, which we haven't done for some time. We've been meeting weekly through this whole period. So we've had our hands full with a number of other issues. You can count on the fact that I will underscore some of what you, Peter, Ryan, Anna, and Andy have been talking about.
Appreciate that, Linda. Thanks for, wow, once a week. That's a heavy load. Thank you for your service.
It's been a busy period.
Yeah, appreciated. Good. Thank you. Paul, do you have any CPC updates? Have you guys been able to meet?
We haven't had any meetings, but I think we did go to the finance committee meeting for the discussion of the recommendations. That was delayed, but then that was held on a Zoom call. And I think there was a lot of questions, there was a lot of back and forth, but I think the recommendation in the end is that it was going to go forward the way that we had drawn it up. So that's my latest update, unless I missed some emails. I don't think I did, though.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Thank you, Paul G. Do we have any public input at this point? Oh, here we go.
Anna, you need
please
to
unmute, give your name and address, please.
Hi, it's Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. And yes, I've been sitting through this meeting. You guys are doing an amazing job. Keep it up. That's it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for listening in. Great. Let's see, any other old business? No. Okay, next meeting. What are we thinking? Can we meet? I assume we should be able to meet given what we're dealing with. Should be looking at sometime in June.
Yeah,
June.
so if they roll out the plan, Anna, what would be the date for start at camp? What were we saying?
June 29th is our hope.
June 29th, and the same with Beatty. So if we,
That will be a wild week.
yeah.
100% Anna McEwen that night.
All right, boy. So should try to schedule it after or before?
I'm wondering if we go before, but
Right.
I'm just hesitant to do the week. I'm almost thinking at least the initial announcements would be out for like that Tuesday, June 16th. So we should have from the governor's office what is the expectations and be able to say what we're proposing to the town manager's office and Board of Health for opening and hopefully be approved at that point in time, similar to how we did with White Pond today. For you to hear that, and that also gives us the opportunity before we open for you guys to have some input and say as to, all right, well, here's some issues or some concerns that give us some insight of how other people are seeing those things. That week, I think Ian is right, of June 22nd, where it's going to be like all out. If we're running on Monday, we will be all out that week.
Sure.
So we don't have to
Okay.
keep it on a Tuesday. I know Casey didn't love 5 o'clock, and Paul, I'm betting you didn't love 5 o'clock, but you might speak otherwise. Paul G, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 5 o'clock wasn't ideal, but I mean, I can do it if that works for everybody else, but a little later would be better.
So maybe say Thursday, the 18th at
Yep.
7. Does that work?
Yep.
Great.
Does that work
Paul
for
G,
everybody?
Paul G, does that work for you?
That works for me, sure.
Paul B, that works for you?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, so there's a quorum at least.
Yeah, we got it.
Excellent. And so you guys someone will reach out to Casey and Jen to see if they're available as well.
Yep.
Awesome.
We're thinking that's via Zoom.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
They don't want any in-person meetings in the spaces yet, so that would definitely be a Zoom.
Okay, just putting in the notes.
Right. Okay. Good. Any other business?
Thank you, everybody, for jumping
Thank
on.
you. I have a motion to adjourn. I see a nod from
Motion.
Paul B.
Motion.
So Paul G, do you have a second it?
Second, yep.
Yes. We have a yay, all yays. Paul B.
Yay. Yay.
To adjourn. Paul
Yay.
G, adjourn.
Yep.
I say thank you guys. Thanks for all the great work, Ryan and Andy, and everybody, and keep up the good work. We appreciate it.
It's
And,
tremendous
doesn't
work.
not
Yep, nice
go
job.
unnoticed, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We got a
Thank
good
you.
team, so.
All right.
These
Take care.
guys.
Stay well.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Stay well and healthy.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Like, Hollywood Square.
Thank you.
See ya.